Actually, yes. You know what? Let's start. Let's
Okay.
start. I really want to start by like going back to because I was thinking about this a lot. I was like, what was my first impression of you? Because
Uh-huh.
I feel like my first impression of you and how I see you now are almost two completely different personas.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
But
Uh-huh.
not even in a way that I was like, oh my God, she's nothing like how I expected her to be, but more in
Mm-hmm.
a way where I was like, you know, when you like open a book and then there's on the first page, there's like only one thing, but then when the further that you go in, you're
Yeah.
like, okay, there's a lot to explore here.
Yeah.
I feel like that's exactly how I felt with you because I remember what we met the first time. You were super bubbly, super cute, super like, "Ah!" And I was like, okay, this girl is full of energy. I wasn't full of energy at that time, so I was like, I don't know if I can like, be around her all the time.
Handle.
I know I'm gonna need my breaks. I'm gonna need my little times. But like, I think after I started speaking to you and like getting to know you more and more, I just realized how fucking intelligent you were. And not
Mm-hmm.
even in like the academic intelligence. I feel like, yes, of course, in the academic intelligence, but more of like, you know your shit. Like there's a lot that you studied. There's a lot, like you did your research. Like you did your research.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like once like it's really different than school and stuff like that because I feel like once you do research with yourself, it's so evident. Like it's so
Yeah.
apparent. Like I can see it in the way that you speak, the way that you walk, the way that you talk. Like it's a completely different dimension. And I
Mm-hmm.
think you felt that like for yourself as well. I feel like for me, the retreat was more like, which is where we met, by the way. We met
Mm-hmm.
at a little slow residency. Was more, I was more of like on the observing mode and more like taking the back seat. But for you, I feel like you were fully in your throne. Like, this is me.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I have to offer. Like, yeah, what phase are you in? What are you
Yeah.
doing? Which I think was such a nice polarity for me because I was like, okay, she can do the work and I'll be chilling at the back and I wanna watch. But yeah, like I feel like that was my impression of you. And I think it also made me realize how much I really sometimes just as much as you say like don't judge, but sometimes I really do have this like first impression as like the dictator of
Same.
how I
Same.
want a relationship to go. But
Yeah.
with you, that was one of the main reasons where I'm like, okay, like this shit like this can happen. And you're
Mm.
definitely a person that I see like,
Mm.
first of all, I'm super inspired by. Second of
Mm.
all, I know I'll like love to in the future even stay in contact with or see each other and like
Mhm.
I think you were one of the like few like
Mhm.
place that I was very like close to my heart, and I was like, okay, this one I know I'm gonna like walk forward with. I know I see this somewhere in my timeline. So
Wow,
yeah,
what an introduction. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. So, um, yeah, that's the usual first impression that I make on people is like I'm this very extroverted, especially when I'm in ovulation, I have all this energy and all of that. But literally, like when you even like look into the bus ride that we're taking from the airport to the residency, like my energy was like literally very quickly just like suddenly I became super quiet and relaxed and like
yeah,
I feel like I can be everything, and that's also very cool that again the cycle like really teaches you that you can be, and the menstrual cycle teaches you that you can be everything. You can be extroverted, and in that time that we met, I was in that like embodiment energy. See me, look at me. This is what I have to offer. I'm in the physical world completely. I'm like completely immersed in my senses, in my body, in my sensual experience. And yeah, it is usually the best time to meet people. But I am also you, and I also was every other woman because at different times we only had like barely a week, even less, to
yeah,
like it felt like more, but we had like barely a week to like really immerse each other in our energies. But yeah, like literally like 1 week later after the residency, like I was you. I was you during the residency. I was in my little cave processing my things, observing. And I love that about being a woman. You can be everything. And it took me a long time to accept.
yeah. And I think that's also something else that I really appreciated about what you shared is that the importance of your menstrual cycle, or just in general, the importance of being a woman. And since, like, as a woman, it does come with biological needs of having these, like,
Yes.
genitals. So, like, we do have a literal cycle within us biologically, but it makes so much sense how you can utilize that biological cycle into your also your emotional and your physical well-being and just
Mhm.
all of that. And I remember like I dove into my own like practice, which was what we like connected with, which was the Woman Code by Elisa
Yes.
Vitti. Is that her name?
Yes. Yes.
I remember it was the time where I was like, okay, learning about your masculine and feminine polarities. And I was like, actually, hold on, I barely know anything about my organ system. I don't know anything.
Mhm.
Like, I just know there's this one period that you get like
Yeah.
every month, and sometimes
Yeah.
it's late, sometimes it's not. But I don't know, I had that feeling of like, I really want to know more. And even if it was like the scientific part, like what, like your
Yes.
hormones, your progesterone, your estrogen, like all of those
Yes.
things. And that book was the first, I think the first like seed that made me realize like, oh my God, there's so much more to being a woman than being just an
Hmm.
emotional being and a person that gives birth and that has even that. Like whenever I
Hmm.
think of that, sometimes I'm like, what the fuck do you mean I get to literally bring something from the unmanifested to the manifested to a
Yes.
portal? Like what do you, and you're
Yes.
telling me my power is this much? It's
Hmm.
crazy. And I remember like when I first started learning about it and I read the book, I was like, it's kind of weird that no one else around me is speaking about this. But at the same time, I also thought everyone just knew and everyone was doing their own thing.
Mm.
Like I
Oh,
thought
wow.
everyone just is like reading their, like just how I was interested and I read the
Hmm.
book. But then when
Hmm.
I started speaking to my friends, I was
No.
like, do you know anything about your cycle? Like, do you know what phase you're in? Which is completely understandable because
Yeah.
I also wasn't like that as well.
Yeah.
But over the years, like when you truly get to like, because it is a journey, like, okay, you read about it and you see the book and everything. But when I started literally witnessing like different and specific patterns that happen in specific times of the month, I'm like, okay,
Yes.
it's not a coincidence. So that's
Yes.
why, like when I was diving into this practice, I didn't honestly, I didn't meet many people that even did thorough research in this area. It was kind of more of
Hmm.
like, okay, we know like a little bit, but it's not my life. But
Hmm.
when I was with you, I felt like you really preach. I mean, you really like walk what you preach as well.
Yeah.
And to me, that was like, it made me realize like, okay, wait, so I did do the theory and there's a lot of like, I do some practices every now and then, but I
Hmm.
don't feel like I am embodying it as much. And so when I saw
Mm.
you, I kind of took it as inspiration of like, okay, clearly there's something, and if especially because I was in awe of you, and usually when I'm in like awe of people, I kind of take down mental notes of like what, like why, what am I in awe of in this person? Like what would I like to like maybe take away from that or whatever?
Mm.
So I just wanted to ask you maybe like how did your journey of that also start? Like why did you even start it? Like what propelled you to even dive deeper into finding more
Mm.
about your body?
I love that question. But before I answer that question, I just want to say I like because when you said like your friends didn't even know what phase they were in, I literally had like a funny situation with a doctor, with a gynecologist, which is like a typical feminine experience. Like I feel like it's like a bucket list, a modern
Check.
woman, yeah, experience going to a gynecologist and like them treating you this way. I expected this, but I never had this where basically she like proposed I had like some mild symptoms that I wanted to figure out like what's going on exactly and I wanted to make sure like physically is everything okay? Can I change something in my lifestyle and the way I eat? And I just wanted to check out. I really didn't even seek her advice. I kind of expected that she won't give me good advice, but I did ask. And she told me that she can turn off my menstruation. And I was like, basically suggesting me the pill, yeah. Which I was like internally like I don't know I don't know if you know who you're talking to. Like I literally live through my menstrual cycle. Like it's very important for me. So that's what I told her, and that I will not do that. And basically what I said is what I will do is I will use my wisdom, my knowledge from the Woman's Code. I don't know if you read that. And the doctor said, no, I haven't. And I'm like, okay. Uh, basically what I will do is go on an anti-inflammatory diet for some time and then check how my body reacts to that. And
You're
then she
dating the doctor.
and she was like, "Oh, cool, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I will read the book." And I'm like,
Thanks, really.
and I was like, "Wow." So maybe after like at least when she reads this and understands the cycle from a like more like physical level, which is like the doctor's purpose. Like the gynecologist's purpose. Like I feel like if I was in her role, I would be curious of like different ways. I don't know, honestly, like if it's like legally impossible for them to suggest like a lifestyle change or something. It doesn't sound like illegal for them to suggest a lifestyle change, but they don't do that usually. And yeah, I just hope she will treat patients better after that when she reads that book, basically. Yeah,
So true, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, so that kind of like that story just like is another story that just keeps pushing me to continue what I do. But how it all started is it's kind of a weird story actually because I was in a very low point in my life in Romania in the Black Sea. I was menstruating and swimming in the sea. And there was the full moon, and I just couldn't stop swaying. Like my hips like kept swaying, and I couldn't really stop them. I was like magnetized to the moon and I just couldn't stop looking at it. And I saw the moon like many times before, but for some reason that day specifically, I was like something like open, something like clicked, like something expanded. And I just knew that there's some connection here. And I just literally Googled the day after woman and moon. And then like wisdom unraveled, yeah, the very very spare amount of wisdom because especially in Poland where I come from, like the wisdom was like barely there. There was like literally a few articles, this was 10 years ago, that I found on the internet, and I was like, I feel the power of this wisdom. Like my whole body like reacted with like a huge sigh of relief and like empowerment. And I just felt immediately that I have to share this with everybody around me. And I started giving lectures the next year at different festivals around Europe,
Oh wow.
uh, Poland, Serbia, Greece, Romania, and beyond. And yeah, and since then I've been like evolving my practice, using time as my teacher. Time is like a great teacher to me, not only like as a gift within the cycle and that there's always a specific time for everything, but also as a harsh teacher because I always felt like I'm behind. I was always in a rush in the past. Uh, And yeah, the cycle, not only the menstrual cycle, but cycles within cycles, the macro cycle and the micro cycles teach me that there is a specific time for everything. And that doesn't mean that we procrastinate. It means that we just use the natural intelligence of the universe and our bodies for creating our lives, basically. Yeah.
Oh my God. I feel like every time I speak to a woman and this topic comes about how she is connected to her own body and how she speaks, I feel like it makes my passion and my like reverence for women so
Mhm.
much deeper because it
Mhm.
makes me realize that like, oh my God, holy shit, for real, I've spent most of my life not even aware of
Mhm.
literally our depth, like
Mhm.
genuinely our depth. And I used to think everything was super like right or wrong, left
Mhm.
or right, this or that, and like if there is like kind of like a one formula for everything.
Yeah.
And no
Yeah.
wonder why most of our, I think maybe like I can speak in my own experience that most of my life there's a lot of times where I was just unhappy and I was always
Mhm.
looking for like a solution and there was never a solution, then I'd have to work it out.
Mhm.
But it was kind of the same cycle that was perpetuating. And
Mhm.
it makes so much sense that the second you kind of like dive deeper into knowing that like, okay, hold on, I'm way more than just a physical body as well. There's so much more like within, whether it's your psyche or your emotional or just even biologically, like the things that our body does without even us asking for it, whether it's our
Mhm.
digestive system or our menstrual cycle or
Yeah.
even pregnancy. Like these things is just,
Amazing.
it's so absurd to think that these things were given to us and we have no control. Like it's literally here. But
Yeah.
we'll take a second to think about how it can serve us, or how, not even how it can serve us, or like why it's here.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
why do I have a, is it like a coincidence that our menstrual cycle is literally the same as the return of a moon's full cycle as
Mhm.
well? Like,
Mhm.
when I think of these things, as I'm like, it's impossible. As scientific as I want to be, as
Mhm.
rational as I want to be, it's almost impossible to deny that there is some sort of like divine intervention that there's
Yeah.
a connection. There's something that has to make sense about
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm also like like I'm because I feel like this is a very Gemini energy. Like I feel like I want to have also facts and I also want to like base my knowledge on like physical, tangible
Yeah.
reality. And I love the menstrual cycle because it is like it's literally like what we speak about. I usually speak about it more in terms of like energy and emotion and like more mental processes, but literally you can like tone it back into like the physical purely hormonal experience that we're having every month. And if a woman prefers to see it that way and like it works for her, it really doesn't matter. Like the result is the same. So I love that you can base this wisdom on like different levels and you can speak about it like multi-dimensionally. And yeah, and it is also very mystical because like even when you think about bringing a child from the other world, yeah, like where does that human come from? Yeah,
Literally.
where does that spirit come from? And it's the same like with physical things, like our ideas, like ideas for painting, music, creative ideas, like inventions, like where do they come from? Like there is an aspect of like the unknown, and that's very mystical. And there's also very like very scientific, logical, rational aspects to it. And I love it. It's like very multi-dimensional.
Yeah, and I feel like it's very nice that there is kind of that like scientific background because sometimes I do understand why most people don't maybe or see this as like woo-woo stuff or like
Yeah,
fantasy. I understand that we live in a society where everything is based off of results, literally. Like
yeah,
do something
yeah.
results. And so of course, like we want everything to be tangible and everything to meet the eye. So I understand that to be honest, but I like when someone's a bit curious. It's like, okay, actually, I maybe I don't fully believe what you're saying, but like, tell me a bit more. And maybe
Yeah.
that's something I want to ask you to do right now. If even though I know it's absolutely impossible, and you can like dive into this topic into such like a spiral, but
Mhm.
maybe if you can talk about the menstrual cycle in a woman's body and kind of for a person that doesn't even know what that is, that's never heard it
Yes.
before, can you give like a simplified version that someone can
Yeah,
take away from it?
of course. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, funny stories before I say this again is that like my friend was all of my friends when they heard this for the first time, they just kept telling this to all of their friends and kept spreading this knowledge and wisdom. And the moment like my friend shared what I'm going to share in a second, her friends asked her if this is some kind of like spiritual practice. And I'm like, and what I'm going to share now is like a purely biological process that our bodies go through. You can go check it up if you want to, but it's nothing spiritual, it's nothing woo. It's like literally a physical process that our body experiences every month. And very shortly, we experience a menstruation. So that is day one of our cycle, the day one of our bleed. And usually that lasts like around 5 days, but really depends on the woman. It can be shorter, it can be longer. Everything is an approximate because there's like a healthy cycle is usually between like 28, 36, 38, let's say. So there's no like perfect amount of days, but that's like the average. So yeah, day one is your menstruation, and then after day five, usually you enter the follicular phase, which is the stage in between menstruation and ovulation, where your body prepares for ovulation and releases follicles, and one egg will finally be the mature egg, which happens in ovulation. And that is like the peak day. And after that, usually ovulation like really like theoretically only lasts like 24 hours in our body. I feel like I experience it more for like in my body for like 4 to 5 days, like when I'm reaching that peak and then that peak, and then when I'm slowly coming off that peak. But yeah, like physically, theoretically, like a woman can get pregnant only one day out of the month. But then there's also like the aspect of like sperm that can stay in the body for at least 4 days, 5 days. So like a woman really can get pregnant for like 5 days a month, which is like something to take into consideration because why are women the ones who are taking the pill? That's just another topic for later, maybe. But yeah, after ovulation, we have the luteal phase, which is basically when the corpus luteum is created and our body prepares for shedding, which happens finally in menstruation.
I think the thing that I love most about explaining like the cycles of a woman, or just the most reference that stuck with me, is when someone was explaining it through seasons.
Yes,
Like
yeah,
your menstruation is your winter, or like you can
yeah.
touch on that if you.
Yeah. So what I explained now is like what happens physically, but then on top of that, there's like many ways of explaining what is happening mentally and like emotionally. And the easiest way is to explain it through seasons. I personally see like 6 gifts within the cycle. So there's 4 phases, and then 2 of them I separate into two. So I see like 6 gifts. There's a system I created called the wheel, and every stage it has a different name. But the simplified version is seeing it through seasons, especially if you don't know anything about it. And the menstruation is our winter time. So usually, like literally when we experience a death, pause, silence, rest, I call this stage the void. And I see like it's for me, I just know, and I've observed this many times, that rest during this stage is key, not only for our body to regenerate, but also for the creative process and for our evolution process to happen later. Because like the energy will be flattened if you do not rest in menstruation, which is your winter time.
Mhm.
This is like I'm going to explain it like quite simply, but yeah. Later we have spring, which is the follicular phase in between menstruation and ovulation, where our energy rises and we come back into the world slowly. And I see two gifts within this stage, the vision and the seed. So basically, when you like tune into what do you want to do this cycle? What do I want to create? What do I want to bring in from behind the veil and bring into this world? And usually this is when we experience like a lot of like a rush of energy, which can also be like felt as anxiety, even if we don't know what to do with all these ideas. And that's why the next stage in the follicular phase, which is the seed, is very important, which basically means that you take those ideas and you create habits and tangible steps that you're taking this specific cycle towards that vision. So first you have to clarify, you have to have a clear vision, clear idea what you're doing this cycle, and then you take steps towards it. And then you enter ovulation, which is like the full embodiment of that vision. It's also our summer season, which basically means that we are in our full fertility, like for full abundance, full embodiment, full sensuality. Usually we feel also the most extroverted, like confident, great time for risk taking, for networking, like I'm doing right now, podcasting, hosting events. And also I call this stage the bloom stage because we basically like emit this fragrance towards the world and like we like energetically like we just manifest, we express that we are here, like I am here. You can see me, like I want to be visible, very like Aphrodite Venus energy, stepping onto the land where all the flowers bloom. And yeah, you are in your full power. So usually like during this week, I also take a lot of action towards my dreams. I'm like very persistent, very consistent. I devote myself to my work. I treat my work as a like my lover, literally. From a place of devotion, not of pressure, which is key within how women work and our bodies work. And then we enter the luteal phase, which is called the autumn, the fall stage of our menstrual cycle, where I see two specific gifts. There's the harvest and there's the shift. So the harvest is like the beginning stage of luteal, where we finish up our projects, we close off what we started slowly, we like focus on the details. We have quite a detail-oriented mind at this time, which can be a curse or a blessing, depend how we use it. But if we use it like, I don't want to say correctly, because there are times for like the inner critic, but we can actually create a relationship with our inner critic. And at this time, ask him like, okay, like let me know, like what is not working. And then enter into that shift stage, the late luteal phase. What is not working? Like the same like in fall, like what needs to die? Like what leaves need to fall off? Like how can I transform? How can I create space for new life to be born again later in follicular? Like, how can I create that space? And yeah, like I said, the key is to not get overwhelmed by the inner critic. Usually, like in this stage, it is quite loud, but I've noticed that it gets louder when we ignore it. So, like if we are in an active relationship with it, then it doesn't have to be so rude. And we can use it like literally I see it like as fire in our hands and like just like use it for burning through anything that is not ours anymore, not real. And but not letting the fire take over you. That's the key. This is the most difficult stage to master, but also the most rewarding. I love this stage because it took me many years, but I finally feel like like yeah, it's the my most mystical, powerful. My senses are heightened. I feel very sensitive, which is great. I love my sensitivity at this time because you can see like the depth. Like this is the maturation stage. It's very opposite to follicular, which was spring, where you were like very optimistic and maybe naive. And that naivety is great, but then there always comes in life a stage of maturation where you kind of see deeper layers of reality, life and death. And then you come back to winter, which is like the death stage, the void in menstruation. And it continues and it moves in spirals, not in circles, but in spirals. Yeah. So you have continuous cycles where you have to also direct. So like not to get ahead of myself, but basically the cycle is cyclical and linear depending on how we direct that spiral and where we direct it. So women are consistent, like we can be productive, we can be yeah, basically consistent, but our consistency is not the same. It's not daily. It's not a 24-hour consistency. It's like our monthly consistency, basically.
And I think that's such an important differentiation as well, because like we do live in a society and just a timeline where most of the jobs and the workspaces do
Mhm.
run, operate on that 24-hour cycle.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think more and more like women are starting to realize that, okay, there's a reason why this like waking up at this time and having to do this at this
Yes.
time and going home at this time is not really like working. For some people it works and good for them. But for me personally, I remember when I like even in university, like when I went to classes, I was like, why am I doing this? Like, why can't I just have my own
Mhm.
morning routine? And if I want, then I have to wake up earlier and I have to be disciplined. And I was like, something didn't
Yeah.
feel right. It felt like I was trying to fight for myself and my body, but
Yeah.
for some reason, I was like, I didn't like, I'm literally, it's my birthright. It's my birthright to
Yes.
have that flow, to have that freedom, and to
Yes.
listen to myself. And I
Yeah.
also completely loved the idea when you said like that inner critic or that voice, like taking that shadow element, but
Mhm.
being curious about it and being like
Mhm.
allies with it and speaking to it. I think that's something that changed a lot in my journey as well, just in general. Like it's so easy for you to kind of take that like harsh critics or even these thoughts that come up and to identify yourself with them, which is
Mhm.
very, I feel like it's very inevitable on your journey to have that really shadowy period where you think you're all your worst thoughts and everything is evil and everyone's out to get you. But when you take
Yeah.
when you sit down and you really start being curious about it, you're like, actually, wait, like, what is this voice trying to tell me? Because
Yeah.
technically everything that was born or everything that was brought into this earth does come with the intent of growth and evolution. It's just how it is.
Yes.
So even your most shadowy aspects can
Mhm.
give you that fruit as long as you get curious with it. So I love that you even like mentioned that and how we can get in touch
Mhm.
with it through our cycles.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask also, like, do you genuinely see that? I don't know how long you've been, but I'll ask you, like, how long have you been on this journey of actually listening to your body and kind of also
Mhm.
like your career is based on your flow, right? Like your everything.
Mhm.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
like
Everything basically. Yeah.
that's crazy. That's really like my. I think I am slow. I mean, I am filming on my in my Lucia face, so not really the
Mhm.
best, but I wanted to do it before my flight.
Mhm.
But like, how long have you been doing it for? And have you genuinely seen like a difference? Like, obviously, there's a reason why you keep teaching it. So,
Yeah. 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 So I also want to say, like, with you recording in Lutio, like, it's also fine. Like sometimes I'm gonna say like how I do it. I'm gonna say like how it's the ideal, perfect way to like plan your life around it and how I do it, how it works for me. But before I say that, like, it's completely fine. Like sometimes the world like literally doesn't allow us. Like we cannot plan everything perfectly, and the like the key step or like the advice I would give is to not pretend like Natalie, like luteal Natalie is just not the same as ovulation Natalie. So basically, whatever we just have to do, like not pretending, not trying to be someone else or feel another way that we are, and being vulnerable as much as we can in a specific workplace or home environment, and like just being ourselves. And also, the luteal phase has its gift with like connecting with people because you see things like deeper and more maybe more clearly and like more maturely, so there are gifts also with doing this at this time. But yeah, I've been doing this. So I started to talk about this and like really like dive into it about 10 years ago. But like to like really implement it into all areas of my life basically took years. Um, I think the first area that I started with was like actually my social life because I struggled a lot with anxiety and like not understanding like why at specific times I just really don't want to be with people and I just really want to rest and I didn't have that like permission, like nobody gave me that permission, nobody told me that it's okay until I gave myself that permission through my menstrual cycle of like no, like you are like you feel a lot of things, you are called into your inner temple, your inner cave, and you are completely allowed to have this alone time. And then I just started to plan like my social interactions, most of them around my cycle, and that gave me a lot of relief. Um, and especially like the new interactions, the new people or like crowded places, I prefer that in follicular and ovulation. And in luteal, like more close people and intimate people I know. And then in menstruation, usually I take like 3 days off. I've been doing that for like many years now, and I take like 3 days off, which I know many women cannot. I made many sacrifices to have a life where I can. But it's because it's very, very important for me to like have this 3 day reset. And yeah, so it started with my social life, and then it kind of like flowed into many other areas of my life, my creativity, how I make my artwork. When I tune into like ideas for my artwork, I have like a magical window where like this is usually the best time when I have my greatest ideas. This is when I like go full in. Yeah, so my magical window is usually like between day 3 and 5 of my cycle, where like the estrogen is rising slowly, and also just like I'm having yeah, I'm slowly drawn back into the world, the physical world, but also not rushing and like defining my vision, defining my idea before I rush into it, basically. And then in ovulation, that's when I'm in front of the canvas most of the time. And I love it, like consistency at this time, like the kind of like masculine way that everybody's promoting. That is like perfect for ovulation. That energy is like, let's say, most masculine in a way, if we can say,
Yeah.
where we are like dedicated and like I literally like feel pleasure from that consistent everyday building of what I'm creating. And then in luteal, I usually like slow down. I like see like, okay, like I don't like these colors. Maybe I need to change up these details. So yeah, and then in menstruation, I rest. I usually like don't create at all. I know that some women love to create in menstruation because it's very intuitive. I usually prefer not to. I just like to not do anything, literally. And yeah, so for social relationships in my artwork, like my artwork became so much better also. Um, because it has like more depth. Um, and also I like if you create art, like any kind of art, you know like how the inner critic can like take control over you. And that was also something like my menstrual cycle like allowed me to realize that wow, like there's a specific place for this and I can use it in a specific way and I don't have to destroy my art in my luteal phase, which also happens. We have this like destructive force at this time.
Mhm.
My relationships, my romantic relationships changed so much because especially if you have a healthy partner, like they will listen. If you know what you want and if you know what you need at specific times, then you can express that. And my partner understands me so much more and can support me throughout all of my process. And support meaning like seeing the divinity power and gift that the menstrual cycle is, not only like tolerating me. That's also a difference. And so much more. Yeah, my relationships, my creativity, my business, uh, my family relationships, my sexuality, also understanding like how what are my needs in that area in the bedroom, and that it's okay to have different needs. And then at 1 week, like I'm feeling like this, and then the next week I'm feeling like completely different, and that's also completely fine. So many like I'm literally teaching this in the temple right now in my membership. Like we're choosing a area of life and like integrating the menstrual cycle in that area of life, and it's so fun. It's so fun.
Oh my God. I fucking love that so much. Like even when you were speaking about how because right now I know that you do have a membership and you are like you kind of have your own formula or your own rubric, but I
Yeah.
also wanted to say like how individually catered even your own cycle is to every single woman. And I
Mm.
think there's something so powerful about a woman that can show up, that can say like, oh, actually, in my menstrual cycle, this is what happens. Like in this,
Yes.
this is what happens. This is what I like. Like just knowing that reaffirmation of like there is no right or wrong. And
Yes.
there's also a huge element of like shame when it comes to this, and whether it has to do with like cultural shame or even just the shame of like, okay,
Mm.
sometimes I could be very critical about myself and I can be like, okay, why do I genuinely not feel like hanging out with people right now? I'm usually social, I'm usually bubbly. Or like, why in this time of like in my life right now, I don't feel sexually driven? Or why in
Mhm.
I feel absolutely not creative. And there's so much, I feel like shame that I have on myself. Like, why am I not showing up the same every single day? And again, it's a byproduct of just literally being in school systems and in like places that function on like
Yeah.
24-hour testosterone cycles. So I think
Yes.
also having that like resilience of like, of course, I don't blame why I
Mhm.
am the way that I am right now. And this is
Mhm.
the truth of the matter. Like my brain is kind of like neurologically patterned this way.
Yeah.
But to not lose hope and to be like, okay, since I'm aware of this now, like let's tackle it. Because I feel like that's the most thing that I struggled with was saying like, shit, like why didn't I know this earlier? Like why? And then also having that like anger towards others, like why do people do this to us? And like
Mm.
why are all the work systems like this? Like kind of this warrior rebellion energy.
Yes.
But kind of coming back and realizing is that people just actually don't know. There's people that
Mhm.
genuinely don't know. Like I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure there's a lot of parents, and even like my mother, when I speak about my menstrual cycle, like there is a brief knowing of like, yeah, before my period, I usually get angry. This is
Yeah.
the norm for us.
Yeah.
Before my period, oh, I'm super emotional. It's probably my period, which is fine. Okay, I love that awareness for you, but it's so negatively connotated of like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, I'm gonna like light up fire and kill everyone week before
Yeah.
my period because I'm super emotional. But kind of reframing that and using again like using your shadowy aspect as like the more like, okay, like I can be more sensitive now, and actually that could help me. Like maybe I do
Mhm.
like in this like work field that I'm working in, let's say it's a creative process, maybe I do need to be sensitive. Maybe I should tune into
Mhm.
music I should put in, or like how I should edit this clip or that. So I think it's like it's so important to also understand that like yeah, everyone has their own way and their own approach, but it's so important to have someone experienced in that area so that they can kind of like mentor you. But for that teacher to have that awareness of like, here, I'll give you my tools and I'll give you my like knowledge, and you can like carve your own path, but you're there
Yes.
exactly what you're doing with your
Yeah.
membership process.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And also with my mentoring, I'm mentoring the first person also now, which is also another experience. It's so cool. It's so fun also to see like how that wisdom is reflected. And like you said, basically that there's different like like depending on the person, they will filter it through their own way. And that's the whole point. Like the whole point is just like basically like giving you the map and then knowing that this is my map and there are maybe some like general things that are the same, but there's like details or some aspects that are completely different, which is completely fine. The whole point is that you understand yourself and you actually apply that wisdom, that you accept the fullness of you and who you are at every stage of your cycle. And and yeah, I have a theory that like this shame that we feel, like because like when did this happen? Like when did this happen that we started to live in systems that are like based like what you said on the 24-hour system? We also like women also have that 24-hour system, but we also have like this monthly system, which is very important for our mental health, our physical health, and all of that. And I don't think anybody remembers now where it when it started, but I do believe that like the longer we suppress like especially like the aspects of death within life, because when you think about it, like women are like glorified when they're fertile. So not only within their menstrual cycle, so when we are in follicular and ovulation, that's when we're like we usually also feel the most confident because the world accepts us the most at this stage or within this expression, but also like within our life seasons and our life cycles, we are usually like the most accepted when we are in our fertile years, yeah, when we are the most sexually active or whatever. And that is like when a woman is like idealized and like sexualized, objectified. So, and then when you think about menopause and menstruation and like just in general, like humanity and society in general, like I believe has really uh ignored, suppressed death within life, and they're like intertwined. Like we cannot, like it's literally impossible to separate them, not within this reality. That's how everything is created. Like new life is born on the soil, on the bones of the past lives that were before. And so yeah, like there I'm not surprised that if we do that as a society and women like internalize that, then we do struggle the most with the luteal phase and menstruation. We do struggle the most with menopause and then like into our elderly years. But like also, if you imagine the other spectrum, like imagine women like reclaiming that part of themselves, which is a very important, like half of them basically, and humanity in general. Like how many women would get pissed? Like what you said with this warrior energy. Like I feel like some women like we do have to get maybe a little pissed and like change from that space, not to destroy, but use that destructive force to create new systems, to create new systems in our environments, in our works, in schools, in our personal lives. Because we cannot sustain this way. Like as a humanity, like how we're acting and behaving is literally cancerous and destructive and self-destructive. So I think we women have to get a little actually pissed, which is happening like globally. Women are kind of pissed. And but using that not to destroy even more, but more to like recreate, yeah, recreate what is not working. So basically woman in luteal, like let's just
That's a
embrace. Yes. Yes. And not from a place of blaming. Like I always encourage women to like have emotional intelligence and like take control of their emotions and like understand if they're projecting something or not. But sometimes, yeah, you have to like express a boundary. Sometimes, yeah, you're freaking pissed, and that's fine. Like, yes, you have a reason to be pissed. It's not that you're hormonal. It's not that you're just PMSing. Like, there's all these different ways for us to just like stay in our little bubble and like stay suppressed and like let's not allow that. Like let's reclaim the death within life, basically.
who is it? Is it the goddess Kali, which is the goddess of
Yeah,
destruction and
yeah,
liberation? Oh my
yeah.
God, I feel like this is really something that I've been like, I don't know, maybe it's also a thing that you maybe can relate with your culture, and a lot of people can relate with their cultures, but in Arab culture in general, we have a lot of like suppression of the women's
Hmm.
power, or just the women's like being a woman, which
Hmm.
is because when I look back into history or just in general, like I think we women still hold a lot of respect and like a place and a presence in a family when it comes to our culture. But when it comes to literally that destructive power, like, yes, you can be fucking angry. Yes, you can have boundaries to put on. And yes, there's this rage that you want to like kind of share. But I think it's a bit more difficult now for people to be like that because they don't feel safe and they
Yeah.
feel like they're kind of like in fight or flight mode all the time in general, whether it's our stress levels or whether it's our like bodies, or it can genuinely be like the physical area of like you can't raise your voice because you will be stepped on or you will
Mhm.
be fired or you will be like talked back to. And I think like there's such an importance of understanding that also you kind of need to create that safe space for yourself. Like have you
Mhm.
ever looked at yourself in the mirror and allowed yourself to feel like nasty or like even like these words,
Yes.
nasty, disgusting, like even
Yeah.
like sexual or angry or whatever it is, like have you ever allowed yourself to be that full spectrum and
Mhm.
hold yourself within that for you to feel safe to express yourself? Because I feel like a huge part of feeling safe externally is also how much have you given yourself space to allow that to be possible. And
Mhm.
yeah, and I think that's something that was, I would say, maybe monumental for my journey and something that I still feel like is an endless journey and an endless like spiral to go through. But the it's crazy when the layers get deeper and deeper to you. Oh my God, there is so much more rage. Like I can access my mom's rage and my grandma's and my whole
Mhm.
lineage, but I can also access like the rage that I didn't have the breakfast that I wanted in the morning. So it's
Yeah.
like a huge spectrum of like feelings and emotions, and we do have that gift, like women do have that gift of like
Yeah.
literally channeling that and doing the work. And I'm not saying
Mhm.
you have to go back to like your ancestors to like yeah, grounded like monk over here. But I think it's important to know that you do have that potential, and not even potential, you have that depth within you to
Hmm.
access.
Hmm. Yes. Yes, and like I said, like the more you suppress it, like the more it gets like destructive, either self-destructive or destructive in your relationships. Like it's like destruction is part of creation, but we have to be masters of that destruction. Yeah, so we really like suppressing will not benefit anyone, you, the world, relationships. But on the other hand, like it makes total sense why you do it. Like there was not space for that. There still isn't really space for that because even in like women in power, oftentimes when they do express boundaries, then they're usually a bitch or like being bitchy or like when a man expresses boundaries, usually he's like, authoritative, powerful, yeah, strong. So yeah, first of all, I think being prepared that people might not understand what you're doing, maybe even your own family, your own culture. Uh, Many times you will probably step out of molds that have been put in place for years, for generations, and it might feel super uncomfortable. It might feel empowering sometimes and sometimes confusing and sometimes like you get lost in that process, and that's okay. I also found like with myself that like I am doing things my ancestors probably have not done, at least for many, many, many generations, and it's no surprise that I just sometimes feel unsafe in that because I'm creating a new path, I'm paving a new path, and I haven't explored it yet, and nobody in my family has explored it yet. Talking about menstrual cycles and like menstruation in general, like it's not something that my family would also imagine myself to do, probably. Especially that they are a different religion, very Christian, and I'm not very Christian. Like I see the truth within all religion and beyond. So stepping out of that is going to be uncomfortable, and be prepared for that. And when you are prepared, I think you have more grace towards yourself, and like it's not going to be a linear process. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's two things that like popped up when you were speaking about that. Is first, when you were saying that like uh I completely lost my train of thought. That literally went
You'll feel brain fog.
literally,
It's
I was like,
typical.
wait, what? But yeah, having that, like, I think we in society as well, and even in this, let's say spiritual realm, there is a huge emphasis on like the feminine being like
Mm.
graceful and like soft and like just very like, and this is something that you saw me struggle with a little bit at the retreat when we went.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm a person that's very fucking straightforward. Like, I'll give it to you straight. I feel like,
Yeah.
yeah, I can be nice and I can sugarcoat something sometimes, but if it genuinely doesn't feel authentic, even though like I know sometimes it is beneficial for you to like I don't know, like accommodate to the crowd around you.
Mhm.
But to me, genuinely, sometimes I feel like I cannot do that. I
Mhm.
cannot. And sometimes that might come off as very like, okay, you're super blunt, you're super
Mm.
emotionless, you're cold, you're rude, you're a bitch. But to me, I'm like, oh my God, but this is the most I've ever felt comfortable with myself and my body. And I did hold a lot of shame to that. I was like, oh shit, like, yes, I really should soften a bit. I should be a woman. Like, why am I acting like such a guy around? Like, I literally had this thought. I was like, why am I acting like such a boy around these women that are so like cute and like dainty and like
Mhm.
there's so much beauty within that. I really I love like I do have and hold that vision of myself like of coming into grace, but I feel
Mm.
like there's a difference. Like I feel like grace comes with so much power. Like
Mhm.
there's my most favorite like mentors or people that I watch online. Like when you look at them and speak to them, there's so much grace, but there's also so much like there's so much
Yeah.
like it's not just like it's more like
Mhm.
have you
Yeah.
have you watched Dune?
Yes. I've even created art inspired by it. Yeah.
The Priestess Mother.
Yes. Yeah.
I remember watching that the movie, and I was, by the way, I just watched it recently, and I was in fucking awe. I was like, how did I just discover this? And it also feels super Arabic. I don't know, there's a vibe of
It
like
does. It
the
does.
Hungarian like Arabic, so it felt super touchy. And by the way,
Mm.
it was actually filmed in Jordan and Abu Dhabi.
I know. I know. I want to go. I want to
Crazy.
see. Yes. Mhm.
For me, that's
Mhm.
crazy. I was like, that's like my two homes.
Yeah.
But
For you, it had to be like even like I can only imagine. Like wow.
yeah, when I watched it, I for real, when I watched it, I was like, I don't know, there was something that hit different.
Mhm.
But also when I was looking at the priestess like mother, like I was like, oh my God, this woman is like she can just do this and the whole kingdom will fall. Like I
Yeah.
saw so much even more power that she held than the king. Like the king was more
Yes.
bit humble, cute, like taking the decisions, being outside, but she was more like behind the veil, literally behind
Yes.
the veil.
Yes.
But all of the decisions were from her mouth, her authority was there. And and you can tell like when they were in that moment of crisis for anyone that didn't watch her, but like in that moment of crisis, she fully was like she knew what to do. She was super strong, she was effective, she was fast, but every move was done with so much power. But Grace, I don't know how she was fighting gracefully. I was like, how?
Yes.
Literally, how? But I
Yeah.
remember seeing that, and I like in my heart, I was like, oh my God, it exists. Like it exists. Like
Mhm.
can be fucking strong and powerful and like blunt, whatever you want to call it. But I feel like I held so much like shame for that as well, of being like, okay, like maybe I should be a bit more gentle and like when I'm bleeding and I need to
Mhm.
like, okay, and what if that doesn't work for me? And like,
Yeah.
what if that's not who I am?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So I've told you this, like I love that blunt energy within you. And I feel like people who just don't have an inner relationship with that like rawness within themselves usually struggle with that. So this is another example, like you going out into the world, like embracing that part of yourself, and like people just sometimes won't understand, and it's really, really hard. And I get it, but I love that. I love that you also carry that culture within you. Like I really feel like you carry your culture and the best of it, the wisdom of it within you. And what I wanted to say, I wanted to say that I believe that that grace, that power, like femininity, like intertwined with strength and power, comes from, again, you can really practice this within your cycle because there are moments of feeling, in my experience, I feel super feminine, like super surrendering, super soft, maybe like soft, like in a sensitive way, in a sensual way, soft as in like relaxed in my body. And I also feel like I sometimes need to tense up and focus and concentrate and express and like direct my energy and be sharp. And both, there's also a time and place within the cycle where that usually naturally occurs. And I feel like women like who have that at, if not like directly through their menstrual cycle, they do at least have an awareness of these two forces within them, and they have access to both, and they use both at specific times. And as a society, also we generally tend to go to like extremes. So I also don't like I don't personally resonate with the extreme of like being super 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 soft and feminine, and also like very feminist. Like I am a feminist, but also like the feminist movement in many ways. I feel like we're heading towards becoming men, and like even the systems that we're trying to implement like male systems. We're trying to like be like them, and that's not the whole point. So many women are like very harsh and like too angry, let's say. Like I understand where it comes from. I respect it, but also it's not going to lead us where we're where we want to be. So
Yeah.
we usually tend to like go to two extremes, and like I see both of those extremes like expressed in our society. And again, a woman is everything. And that's a really hard, difficult concept to grasp because we usually like to label things, and we usually like to put things into small boxes, and you are like that or you are like that. But a woman, like literally, like your body, like takes you on a journey of the fullness of life every month. And you are everything. You are both. You are Eros, you are Thanatos. You have the erotic, life-giving energy, the creative energy, and you have the destructive energy. You are both. And that is revolutionary. And that is how, like, I want to see more women like that. I want to see, like, more leaders in that energy who understand the power of both of these energies. And yeah, there's this saying, yeah, that the woman is the neck and the man is the head. I think like the woman is both and the man is both, because the neck is like that space, that energy that everything is controlled from, yeah, or like we tune into, and then the head is just like taking orders and like giving that. Within the cycle, there's also a specific time for that. So like menstruation and like early follicular, we tune into what we want to do, what is asked of us. And then in ovulation, many times we just take action and we follow and we do that. And the same with men. Like I feel like they also are very intuitive beings. They're just not allowed to have that. So as a humanity, I think we have to really revolutionize how we see these two energies, whatever we call them, black, white, masculine, feminine, and like find a intimate, create an intimate relationship within ourselves with them.
Yeah. Oh my God, 100% redefining what a man and a woman
Mhm.
is, or like even like why do they have to be something? I think that's such, yeah, because I know we're mainly speaking to women because we are women. So for
Mhm.
me, I feel more comfortable with this topic because I feel like it's
Yeah.
something that I've felt and I've experienced, so I can be more intentional about it. But yeah, I'm sure also men go through the same thing, whether it's
Mhm.
societal pressure of how they should show up and whether it's they have to be like they can't be too vulnerable and they can't be too strong and they can't be or they'll be too possessive
Yes.
or they'll be too soft like
Yes.
it is this dabbling of literally each spectrum and I've even
Yes.
that like within my own journey of feeling like it's the rush also it's the being like having to figure out something so quickly it like resolves you to go okay one spectrum okay no this isn't right so the other
Mhm.
and you realize like holy shit like why have I been what am I running for and where am I like literally where am
Yes.
and coming to
Yes.
that more grounded energy of being like, okay, actually, this isn't bad, this isn't good, this isn't good, this isn't bad, and what do I need when? And that's why
Yeah.
menstrual cycle is a huge like. Also, it's kind of a hack. I'm not gonna like the gods
It
make it
is.
easy. They're like, here you go. You don't have to
Yeah.
figure everything out. You just need to tune in. And although
Yeah.
it sounds like easy and sometimes it could be the hardest thing, but I think like you said, it's kind of a mastering process. Like it's a trial and error. Like just try.
Yep.
Everyone says like, okay, you want to know something, try it, and you just fucking try. Take
Yeah.
notes. You have to. Like I remember even once, like I wanted to know what foods were best for my body because I know also food is a huge
Hmm.
element
Yes.
menstrual cycle as well. And I had like a digital diary where I was like, okay, after I eat this, this is how I felt. But I
Mm.
was also like a bit too rigid with it. And then I realized,
Mm.
okay, like, how about we relax? And
Mm.
I find a ton of things, like even that woman code book, like she had sections,
Yeah.
phases on what foods to eat. If
Yes.
you have anything to share about that as well, by the way, like as nutrition and like physical health.
Yeah, I'm not a nutritionist. I actually want to like dive into that even more. Also just for myself. I do it's so funny because like this is usually where people start. This is
Yeah.
like where this is where I'm ending. So like I explored the menstrual cycle in so many other ways, but like the physical aspects, like I also integrated that, but that was the last step. And I think because I'm like tuning into like body presence. I'm like a very intellectual kind of person, so like body presence is like something I'm learning. But yeah, like to simplify, like you eat when you come back to the seasons and you when you think about like what grows at a specific season, you eat in a very similar way throughout your cycle. So follicular phase is like spring kind of food, very fresh, light. In ovulation, you eat things that would grow in summer. So again, fruit, fish, spinach. You also like support your liver in like digesting estrogen. Like that's a key step also in ovulation. And like the key hack or like the number one thing, which is actually quite popular on TikTok, I think, is the carrot salad, which is basically like raw carrot and sesame seeds and olive oil, and you eat that and it really really helps with the liver and like digesting too much estrogen because that is like a usual problem. It depends on the woman specifically, but like usually a lot of women experience PMS and menstrual cramps, and that just to simplify usually comes from excess estrogen. So yeah, that's how we can simply support our bodies in ovulation. And then in luteal, we need more like grounding foods, warm foods, soups, and anti-inflammatory also support like ginger. And bone broth oftentimes is really good for this time. Also in menstruation, which is like winter food, again, bone broth, soups, also like greenery, beetroots, seaweed. That's also very helpful for our bodies. And what I want, yeah, and also like seed
Yeah.
cycling
Yeah.
is also very helpful. So like eating specific seeds at a specific time. Usually you eat, I think it's like I did it for a long time, but I stopped recently. pumpkin seeds and sunflower in the first 2 weeks, I think. I have to check this.
Pumpkin is for the menstrual, the end, no? Luteal and menstrual?
No, pumpkin seeds for sure, like in the first two phases. Okay,
Okay.
let me just check this quickly because I forgot. I used to do this for a long time. It really helped, but for some reason I stopped recently. Yeah. Okay, no. Seed cycling, that's what it's called. Seed
Cycle.
cycle. Yeah, so pumpkin seeds for sure in the first half, and then in the second half for sure sesame seeds.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So flaxseed and pumpkin seeds in the first 2 weeks, and then sunflower seeds and sesame seeds in the second half of the cycle. So basically, what that helps is just with an estrogen boost at the first time, at the first 2 weeks of the cycle, and then with the progesterone boost that we need at the second part of our cycle.
Mhm.
And yeah, basically these two hormones are like the basic play, interplay, dance that happens within our bodies. But estrogen dominance is quite typical because we can find it in like many different foods, cosmetics, scented candles,
Okay.
um, products that we use in our homes. And it's kind of crazy like how like it's kind of a curse and a blessing that the female body will like physically tell you if something's wrong, like within your lifestyle, your environment, how you're living, your stress levels. You have like a monthly like card, let's say, that will just show you if something's wrong. Men do not have that, but men oftentimes like they first of all die earlier oftentimes and they have like heart attacks and different illnesses because they do not have that monthly like checkup. So it's we can see it as a curse or we can like change our perspective to see it as a blessing because we can like readjust if we see we have specific symptoms and in the woman code like it's a really good book to like check like which symptoms you specifically have, how you can supplement, how to eat at every phase. And start with that. Like if you're really starting with your menstrual cycle and you just heard about it, like I think it's a good starting point to like understand your body because from that space you can experience all these gifts and like energetic shifts that I've been speaking about. I'm just going to take my charger because my computer's going to die. 1 second.
Okay. Okay, okay, okay. Oh my God, but that drawing is honestly so beautiful.
Also,
Tell me.
random tip, but I only tried this once during my last cycle, but I've heard and I saw that like pickle juice. Ooh,
Heard about that too. I'm not a huge fan of pickle though.
I am. Okay, I might just need okay, 1 second to like charge this because like this is getting out of control. Just 1 second. Let me just take this. Let's put this here. And then just take this back. And then that's operating.
Okay. No?
You know, operating. I have a better camera on my computer, but it's so funny.
Oh, oh,
You probably have a very funny perspective.
I do. Okay, I get to look into your beautiful eyes.
Okay, that's kind of working.
Yeah, that's good. Yes, that's perfect. Yeah,
So,
I was gonna say
yeah,
that it's super like overwhelming if someone just wants to start and they're like, oh my God, there's seed cycling, there's this, there's winter season,
yeah.
there's stuff like that. But yeah, like I even wanted to ask you like where would you recommend people start? So yeah, the Woman Code book I think is amazing. And even I think listening to podcasts, like I remember when I was cleaning or whatever, I would have like people that would there was almost 30 podcasts, maybe if you know any podcast names to share.
Yeah, So I think like I recently discovered, and I was so surprised to discover this podcast because I'm like, oh my gosh, like they're literally speaking about everything I've been exploring within myself for years. But yeah, the menstruality podcast is a really good one. To understand the cycle for like from a mental, physical a mental, spiritual, energetic level. I don't know anymore. Honestly, like I haven't read that many books or listened to many podcasts. Like I've been really exploring it like through my own system and the women around me. And like beyond the woman's code and the menstruality podcast, I also recommend coming and like talking to me if you want. You have if you're listening to this and you have any questions, I would gladly answer. I love to answer. Also like mhm.
What do you offer?
Yeah, what like within my space, there's like three offers. One of them is the temple, which is this monthly subscription where there is currently 9 women, and I would love to see that grow. And like I want to create change in a movement together, where every month we have a masterclass and a moon circle. And during that masterclass, we learn how to integrate our menstrual cycle into a specific area of life. And we also meet in moon circles where we share like how are we within our cycles? Do we need support? Do we need some inspiration? So we have 2 live meetings every month, plus a group on WhatsApp. And then I have the wheel, which is like a 6-week online course where we master the menstrual cycle and the energetics. And we also define the North Star, like as I call it. So basically, we define where we want to direct the spiral of movement within our cycles. To what point in time? Where do we want to end up in? So that's what we do. And the same in my mentoring, but this is very much one-on-one, very intimate, very personal, where we also define what is your North Star, where are you heading, where do you want your cycle to end up in, and I also help you master the energetics and also look at your individual experience. So we meet in your follicular phase, in your ovulation, your luteal, and your menstruation, and we work with the gift when you are within that experience because it makes the most sense for me. So yeah, that's what we do. That's what I do.
And you created all of this through your cycle.
Yes. Yeah, also like it's kind of amazing to create like spaces and offers using also my own menstrual cycle because I like tuned into the ideas. I refined at specific moments and like this is what has been ripe and it's been growing for years. Honestly, I've been trying to I've been not even trying to, I've just felt that I had to do it and it feels so good to do it.
That's what people feel attracted to as well. Like they can, I think it's more of the feeling as well. Like you're like, oh, okay, she has something that I want to learn more about, or I want, it's not maybe necessarily what you specifically teach, it's what you embody as well. It's like, okay, there's
Mhm.
something that she's doing over here that I kind of want to like tweak into. So
Yeah.
I'm so fucking happy for you. And I'm so proud of you because like I remember when before I left, you were like, I really want to do this before, like you said, a certain period
Yes.
for this month. And you did
Yes.
it, and that's crazy.
Yes, both of us like really took
Yeah,
steps. Like,
you did.
like we were like, okay, we know we're heading towards it. And that's also like that's why I love the linear and the cyclical aspect of the cycle because like when you know where you're heading, then you have that very clearly defined, like at least like to a certain extent, and then you just allow the cycle to take you there, and you use all of these gifts and all of these gifts within the month to take you to a specific point in time. So this can be used as a manifestation tool. Actually, I think it should be like the
Yeah,
basic
yeah,
manifestation
yeah.
tool.
There's also a lot of like sex magic that people use when you can
Mm.
tune into your sexual energy when it's during your moon time, and that's like the most like potent your.
Yes.
It's funny because a lot of people think the opposite, like it's the most like dirty time of the month.
Yeah.
Like there's that vibe, but it's actually the most
Yeah.
potent and magical time of your
Yeah.
life. Oh
Yeah.
my God, this was so good speaking to you. I'm honestly so happy to have this. I think this is the first like podcast interview that I have that's something that I want to like path into, which is more about the woman, their body and their cycles. So I'm so excited for this to be like the first of many.
Yes, I would love that. I would love that. And seeing you and the fact that we're actually doing it, like seeing each other after the residency and not like just like saying it. We're doing it. And I'm so happy and I'm so proud. And I cannot wait also to see what happens. Cannot wait to see what happens later when you also fulfill your dreams and you reach for them and
Yeah.
you become the woman who you always meant to be, step by step, evolve into her. I love it. I love it.
Literally a journey, and I have to remind myself to take it slow and not rush. It's a
Yes.
challenge, but I'm trying. I am trying.
Yes. And but there's times for sprinting, like literally like physically, like sprinting is also a good time, follicular phase ovulation. But and there's times to like go all in, and you can put all of that energy. Like you can like be an ambitious woman who knows what she wants and she wants to like put all that energy, but then respecting when to slow down. Yeah, that's the whole point.
100%. I love you so much. Thank you for doing the work and sharing your work. Being like literally a system changer is what I see as well.
I love that compliment. That's a freaking good. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Love you so much. See you soon.
Bye.